Hey everybody, Sand River again, unfortunately. This time in my Cent 7-1, platooned up with Adrid in his T30. We've ended up with a 41% 40 WN8 IS8 on our team. If I let go of the scoreboard, he is bone stock. Yes, that is the Tier 7 D25T, the same gun the IS gets. Now, to unlock the IS8, you actually have to unlock the BL9 on the IS3. To the best of my knowledge, the BL9 can be mounted on the stock tracks. I know it can be mounted on the stock turret. In fact, the M62, the top gun, can also be mounted on the stock turret. Now, there is a vague possibility that the guy went up the other heavy tank tree and stopped before playing through to the actually, no, never mind, I'm retarded. You do have to actually unlock the BL9 to... I'm thinking of this backwards. You can actually get to the ST1 without unlocking the BL9. You have to go up the IS3, IS8, IS7 line first to get the BL9. So yeah, he made a conscious decision to play that tank completely stock. And he's 41%er, 40 WN8. Keep an eye on his comments about the IS8 in chat. Now, onto the topic of the actual match, and not how bad pubbies are at playing this game. We head up north, as is pretty ordinary in a medium tank, especially one good at hulling down. The enemy is spotted as they cross. I take a quick shot at the KV-4, it flies slightly high, looks like the tracer went just over his engine deck. Had I stopped a little longer and aimed that first person, I don't think I would have had any better of a chance of hitting. This one was just RNG. The shot flew a little lower than I'd wanted, and the IS-8 blocks me and gets me hit by Artie when I was trying to back off. You may have seen what I said to him at the start of the match. He actually team killed somebody on our team the match before, and so I wasn't expecting much out of him this time either. Now this June here is a really good position for Adrid and I. We're both hull down tanks and we both have very good guns. The problem is, if the enemy begin pushing north into A8, A9, which they are doing, it somewhat restricts our positioning options, because then they can fire down at us from up there as well as from around the dune. It forces us not to fire towards the east, but rather to focus north from this little gully I'm in here. As you can see, I am still hull down, just not in the position I wanted to be hull down. The match is beginning out well enough. We're kind of thin in the north, but it looks like we've got enough tanks to handle it. South is pretty heavy on our team. They've encountered light resistance so far, plus the T95 shooting across, but it seems like they'll be okay down there, at least you would think. I roll out here for a moment, and I spot the T95. So I put a shot through his side because he's busy shooting at the guys down south. I'm looking for a second shot, but he's turning to face me, and I was lit. So I quickly snap one off. That wasn't even really aimed. I don't know why I did that. Maybe just to keep his head down or something. I'm sure it was meant to be an aimed shot, but sometimes in the panic of battle I kind of whiff badly. Either way, it was a nice chance to get a shot into the side of him, but I've got more pertinent worries up here. I don't know if you saw that. You could actually see the shell being lobbed towards my tank from that KV-3. Now the Bulldog's an annoyance more than a threat. He's keeping me lit, and he also can pen me in the hull, and if he hits my turret weak spots he can pen me there as well, but it's unlikely. The biggest problem is he is spotting us permanently, and the enemy do have Artie. It's unlikely they'll hit us on the back slope of this dune, but I have seen it happen. And now the Type 61's getting brave. The other tanks around us have either died or fucked off, leaving myself and Adrid alone with no real support. The IS is running away and dead, and the T28's in a position where he can't actually shoot anything that's pushing on us. So it's down to us two. South has also collapsed, although I didn't notice it at the time because I was, rather preoccupied with the 5 or so tanks actively pushing on me. Type 61 comes around and finds cover. Here we go. IS-8 is fucking useless tank. So weak, says the 41%er. No, the IS-8's a really good tank. I do pretty well in it, I would think. Bad players, bad opinions, good tanks. Anyway, myself and Adrid make short work of several of the incoming enemy tanks, but they're still pushing. The IS-3 is one-shot material. Adrid can one-shot a KV-3, I cannot. It'll take me 2 shots to finish him, assuming I don't roll very low. However, he makes himself an easy target, so I take the chance to knock him down a bit, rather than pop around and risk getting hit to get a shot on the IS-3. The 103 pops over and distracts me. The IS-3 sees a chance and takes out Adrid. Unfortunately, I just wasn't looking the right direction. Here I have to push around. The 103 is chasing me. I have no option but to drive in front of the KV-3, and in fact he actually 0 damages my track. Unfortunately, I find the one part of his tank my gun can bounce off of and shoot at it. Now, I thought I should have been dead by now, but it turns out we actually ammo racked the M103, and so he wastes his one shot into the dirt. I pull back to avoid a ram. He is still heavier than me, even though I am very heavy for a medium tank. And while he's on his lengthened reload, I begin traversing around him. Unfortunately, I just take the corner too wide, and it enables him to get his gun back onto my tank. If you ask me what happened to our team, I honestly wouldn't be able to tell you. First of all, myself and Adrid were so caught up in what was going on around us, neither of us really had a chance to look at the map. It caught us off guard when the south collapsed, but I mean, if you have that many tanks pushing on you and it's only you and your buddy, you know that something's gone seriously wrong anyway. If I had to guess, I'd say the T95 knocked some hit points off, the enemy arty probably contributed, and it looks like actually the King Tiger and the 4502 cleaned up, which is interesting because I would have thought that the tanks we did send down south would have been able to handle them without much trouble. But then again, these are pubbies we're talking about. Unfortunately, you can't always save a team, either because you just aren't in a position to do it, or because they don't want to be. I think this is a bit of both. Once myself and Adrid got locked down by the north pincer on us, we couldn't reliably relocate. If we'd shifted east, the T95 would have had shots at us. If we'd shifted north, the guys there would have had shots at us. If we'd moved southwest towards our cap, again, we would have been shot back by the guys up north. Plus arty, plus the T95 may have caught us crossing the ramp. Not really an ideal situation. And this is something of a problem. A lot of the time, especially in medium tanks, you're required to get into a rather forward position, particularly some of the really, really good players in fast mediums, like say, I've seen a number of G players do it. Havoc, I mean, I try and do it, but I'm not going to say I'm as good as them because that's just wrong. A lot of them will take, say, T54s or T62s or you know, basically any medium tank that's got decent survivability and decent speed, they'll take it and they get into the highest risk but highest reward position. Usually means they're overextended horribly, there's very little team around them to back them up, and quite often they're exposed to arty. This is why Garbad used to get killed by it so much and always complain. I've seen him do it. He drives way out into the fucking middle of a field. It's a great position until he gets spotted, and then arty shells rain down and he wonders why he's dead. The problem with this is, although if it works out, you've got an enormous advantage to leverage over the enemy team, if it doesn't work out and the enemy team do something you don't expect, say they deploy more heavily on your flank than you thought, or they pincer around behind you, or in fact if they actually don't deploy to your flank at all, which I've seen happen numerous times to me, actually it happened today several times, it can fuck your whole plan up. If there's nothing there, it means you're in a position where you can't do anything while the rest of your team gets slaughtered. And if they're all there, or if they pincer around you and cut you off, you can't actually fall back to where you need to be to support your team as they begin to slowly collapse. Now, had we not been pinned down, we could have moved back towards the southwest, reinforced south, and just done the medium thing, really. Adra obviously is not a medium, but he'd be able to provide longer range fire support to me as I shuttled around the map cleaning up. Late game in a medium, or if your team's beginning to collapse, quite often you'll find yourself moving from one flank to the other. If you're sitting on any one flank all game in a medium tank, either your team has actually got their shit together, or you don't have your shit together. If there's a failing flank somewhere, it's your task as a medium, as long as it's not suicide, to actually run over and shore it up, or at least to delay the enemy for as long as possible. So ideally I would have been able to head southwest and mount a defense in those dunes, and that would have been really good terrain for it too, obviously, because it's all sand dunes and the Centurion loves sand dunes. But because they had that pincer on us to the north, if I'd tried to relocate at all, I would have been killed. Once they had that group in position, I basically could not move out from behind that dune, and this is inherent in a lot of these positions. Even though they give you a really good position to shoot from that crescent dune, you can shoot into the north pass at A8, A9, you can shoot into the bowl behind it in the C and D lines past, past 8 line, this sort of area here. You can also actually pop out around the bottom of the dune and get basically an arc of fire that runs all the way around here, including about half of the TD ridge and then a decent chunk of the south, including the ramps. So you can get really good firing positions from up there, and it's a decent defensive ground. If you need to fall back, you can flex back into the dunes here or back here. The problem is, if they have a group here and a big tank destroyer there, you basically are pinned, because the only thing stopping them from all shooting you is that crescent dune. Your movement is limited to basically this narrow arc here, which you could see myself and Adrid working over during the course of the game. Now, if your south flank holds, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you're still in a very, very strong shooting position. The problem is our south flank didn't hold, they just fell apart, and when they needed us to come down and reinforce them, we couldn't, because there was no possibility of moving. And that's true of a lot of these high risk, high reward positions. If the match starts to run away from you, if your team begins to fold, you really need to be able to move. If you're pinned down, you probably have already lost your team the game. And so although they generally do work, especially if you're good enough to exploit them, there's always going to be those games where you move into a position only to find that it's the wrong call, and you can't really do anything about it other than just chalk it up for experience and hope that next time you get a bit better luck. Not every game is carryable as much as I would like to say that they are. Hindsight is certainly a powerful tool, but it's not one that you have when you're being pressed on by a good chunk of the enemy team without any real support. And so, although I can come back and look at these replays and commentate them, and you guys can watch them and say, oh, well, you should have done this, or you should have done that, or I can say, oh, well, that was a mistake, or I know that this guy was here, that's all hindsight. That's something I know from watching this again, and from just things that I realized after the battle looking at the post-game report. Information is everything in this game. That's the reason XVM is such a powerful tool. Kind of bordering on a bit too powerful almost, but I mean, it is a mod though, so it is out there for everyone to use. It's people's choice if they use it or not, but having as much information as possible about what's going on in this game is actually a lot more useful, I think, than actually being good at the tanks game, so to speak. I've seen a lot of players who aren't so good at the tanks game. They miss their shots all the time, or they position questionably, or they just toss out a lot of hit points, even more than me sometimes. But because they do have that ability to just know what is going on around them, they can exploit things that somebody like me would miss. And it's a really powerful tool, I think. Anyway, I'd like to thank you for watching. I will catch you next time. Best of luck in the field, and honestly, just don't beat yourself up about games you couldn't carry. It's good to look back at a match and say, well, I should have done this differently, or I should have done this differently, but I mean, now you know that. Back then you didn't. there's not much point dwelling on it, even though I tend to sometimes. Instead of dwelling on it, oh, I fucked up, I did so badly, you should be putting those lessons into effect, and so next time you won't find yourself in the same situation. See you next time, folks.